everyone. Welcome to another episode of Damien Conversations. This week we have Jorge, hailing from Moline, Illinois. Jorge does Jems label.
Rock Island, Illinois.
Rock Island, Illinois. I gotta fuck up on everyone.
It's all right. We're so close. So close.
Yeah, it's the Quad Cities, so it's the cluster. He's also in White Batzzz, operates his own tattoo shop called Aquemini, and used to run the label Nail in the Coffin, which I don't know if it transitioned into Jems or if it was just something to clean slate. So we'll find out. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, what's up? How you doing?
I guess we'll start to let the general public know. Jorge does a lot of layout on top of everything else. He's him and Morgan Carpenter, who we interviewed before, did tons of work for Damien, mostly Jorge. So if you've ever ordered anything from us and received stickers, buttons, and layout, a lot of it, Jorge did it. So we're indebted to Jorge's work. He helps out quite a bit. So I guess maybe just go into how Jems started and where it came from.
Well, like you said, it came out of the Nail in the Coffin label I did from, I started that label in 2000 and ended it, I think, around 2010. Took a little break and started Jems immediately after. And Jems came about, Nail in the Coffin felt more like a art project or something where it was anything and everything I enjoyed, my friends, people I reached out to.
Yeah.
So when I kicked into Jems, it was just a matter of, I'm just going to work on my friends, specifically my friends, my projects. After a little bit of time, it just kind of was like, this isn't really, it's just, I'm just kind of kicking around like a piece of meat. Nothing felt like it was coming to fruition. So I kind of just chilled for a while.
Sure. And are you from Rock Island originally? Were you born and raised in Rock Island, or did you move there at some point?
I moved here about 3 years ago. I'm from East Moline, Illinois, which is literally 10 minutes, east of here. And I moved here. I moved in my girlfriend a few years ago, and I love it. I live in a weird nook, which is kind of in a forest, and then but it's surrounded by city. So I have a little gem of a spot that I live in. So yeah, I enjoy it quite a bit. Plus the Meth and Goats guys, they got the record store that they run, and that's right down the hill from here. And I love going to that and just sitting there and kicking it with those guys and
sure,
pissing money.
Those guys are great. I mean, I haven't seen them in so long, but for those of you watching, they're just band from. Are they originally from Des Moines? I mean, that's how I.
No, they played there tons. They're from the Quad Cities. They're a Quad City band. All of us, yeah.
My par today, what am I, 0 for 4?
It's Midwest, so it's oh, you're from Iowa. You've got to play these 4 different cities because you're in a band and that's where they play,
short distances, and people moving around a lot too within Iowa, Minnesota, Illinois area too, it seems like.
Yeah, exactly. And people, yeah, exactly. They just move to all those different little spots and jump in the scene. But yeah, I did a little pickup down there the other day. The record store just opened up, and I was able to do a pickup, and I was like, hell yeah, I'll go down there. And actually, here, JB slipped me a little Robin Cock or Cock Robin tape as a joke. All it is. I don't know. I was pulling all my shit out, and I was like, I definitely did not get this. You're a funny guy.
I would know my Cock Robin.
Exactly.
So when you were younger, what were kind of your earliest influences when it comes to music and art? Because you do, like I was saying earlier, you do graphic art design, layout, all hands-on stuff too, with your with scratch off lettering, tattooing and such. So I guess just maybe kind of explain how you got into any kind of visual or audio sensory.
I would say a large jump off point for that stuff was Sam McFeeters, Neil Burke.
But as a child, growing up, did you have any?
Well, I mean, honestly, I got into that stuff when I was about 12, 13 years old.
Okay.
So before that, it was like Lookout Record stuff. The music and the art stuff really hit me about the same time.
Mm.
So I was into like punk bands, like, you know, the Lookout Record stuff, Screeching Weasel, Rancid.
Mm-hmm.
So all that art really influenced me. And then I got the Screeching Weasel Born Against split, and then it was Born Against, Vermiform Records, everything from that point out.
Yeah.
Mark McCoy, Charles Bronson, that shit. When I got into that stuff, I was also about that age, 12, 13. My little kid punk band, we played a show at Charles Bronson, and mind blown. I remember meeting Mark when I was really young, you know, and he was Mark then, just the same. Yeah. You know, he's like the same
Cool,
person.
man.
Really cool.
Fuck.
Yeah, no, it was. I remember.
Yeah.
I even messaged him about, he had this Charles Bronson belt buckle he had made, and I was flipping through his records, and I was like, "Oh, you must be in that band, Charles Bronson, that's gonna play. That's a cool
yeah,
belt
right.
buckle."
Yeah.
And yeah, you know, like goofy things like that. So seeing all what they had as a package, you know, musically, like kind of tongue in cheek about stuff, you know, being able to point fun back at themselves and still do really gnarly art and say cool stuff.
Yeah.
That's where I was like, oh, this is what I like, you know.
Sure. Did you have any influences when you were even younger? Like, did you have like family members who had music that was just playing in the house, or musicians?
Oh, yeah. I mean, my dad's always been, I mean, music came from my dad. He was a drummer. He taught me to play drums when I was, you know, in my single digits. But Santana was breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Sticks.
Oh, wow.
Sticks and
Yeah.
Santana.
Sticks,
like
Sticks was in my house as well. One of my brothers had a Sticks record.
But yeah, I mean, really, when I think of music, growing up, it was those two bands, like, persistently.
For sure. For sure.
And still to this day, if I get in a car with my dad, it's going to be Sticks or Santana, usually.
S or S. Who's the
guy? Yeah, exactly. You pick one, man.
Yeah.
Shit, I did all this so much, but it's great. You know, you kind of go into, like, you grow up listening and then you hate it, and then you go back to it and you're like, I do love this stuff. I do. There is, you know, I do
Totally.
love it, you know. So, but back then, Roger Rabbit, that was literally the first thing I ever drew, was Roger Rabbit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I got in trouble, got sent to my room. I had Roger Rabbit bed sheets, and I drew a picture, came back down, and they forgot I was in trouble. And I was like, shit, I can get out of trouble with this, then let's see what else we can do. And
what'd you get in trouble? Or did you draw it on?
No, I was in trouble before that, and I went upstairs and just decided to draw this picture on my bed sheet.
I thought you got in trouble for drawing Roger Rabbit somewhere.
No.
Get that kid.
Yeah, no, all the trouble from drawing on shit came very soon after that.
For sure.
You know, like, teachers were like, your work sucks and you're drawing on everything. Like, pay attention to the work, you know. And I'm like, I just want to draw, man. I just want to draw. So
what was the first, I guess, like, your first, like, jobs, I don't want to say jobs, but your first like attempts at releasing something with your art on it, whether it be for like a friend's band or a flyer or something of your own? Like, what was something, like, some of the earliest things that you did on your own that became a release or some form of advertising or whatever?
I remember being in, like, 7th grade, and I was making up album covers for bands that didn't exist. And I was just like, I think this is what I want to do. I want to do this. You know, when you're 10, 11, 12, they're definitely just dreams then, you know. Mm-hmm. The following year, I joined a little kid punk band, and we released the tape immediately, and I drew it. And so I was like 12, you know, around then when I did my first official release, I guess.
Nice.
Yeah, I gotta, can we pause this or something so I can run the restroom really quick?
Yeah, no problem.
Smashing this beer. So, all right, 1 second. I'm sorry about that, man.
And we're back.
Sorry.
It's all good. I've always was wondering, like, I should have taken I should have paused on the interview I did with Sonny because at the end I was like, it was near 2 hours and my legs were moving like this. I had to take a piss, and then after I was done, I was like almost grabbing my crotch, you know, because I'm like, do I pause it now? I'm not that familiar with Zoom. Like,
Yeah, I this is literally again my second time. So,
but I told him afterwards, I'm like, sorry to cut that short. I got to take a piss, and he started laughing. But yeah, so you were saying you're at 12 was like your first punk band. That was your first release that you did your own art on. That you did. It was primarily your first layout. So I guess from there, like, what were the, you were talking about, like, you got into like Screeching Weasel, Rancid, and things of that. Charles Bronson, Vermiform was big one. So I guess from that point, take us forward with where you went as far as influences, who was influencing you,
Yeah, I mean, from that point on, I was just basically mainlining anything Vermiform did and just tracking it down, anything Mark touched, Then I got into the 31G stuff, Locust, which to me really felt like a continuation where Vermiform left off, in some weird way. I guess maybe more attitude wise, Let's see where else. And really, there's just so much. Chris Norris, combat wounded veteran stuff. Stake Mountain. When he popped in there, I was just like, whoa, shit,
his shit was so cool. It was like taking like all the Vermiform stuff that at least like that we would recognize in our head. We think of like a Born Against record.
Oh yeah.
It was like that's kind of, influence, but I felt like it was just like times 10,
Yeah,
like,
souped
so
up,
much
like
more.
ultra artsy. Yeah.
Yeah, it was super great.
I'm a really antsy guy, so I'm gonna be moving around probably a few times.
Oh, good.
But yeah, so all that stuff and every aspect, I was breaking down every picture, every design, trying to recreate that stuff. I didn't use computers at the time, so I was using pens, Sharpie pens,
Yeah.
I stopped using pencils, period. My entire teen years, I almost didn't use pencils. I only used pens, marker pens.
Wow.
And so when I got into my 20s, that's when my cousin was like, dude, everything you draw is in pen. You ever think of tattooing? And I was like, ooh, no, I never have. I've been getting them, since I gave my first tattoo to myself when I was also like 12.
Did you like eat like stick and poke?
Yeah, I still got it. It's this little, it's like a Descendants tattoo.
Nice.
I still have it. Yeah, I mean, cheesy, young. I still love the band. I don't care.
It's all good.
Yeah, but yeah. So that was kind of the transition, as I just simply did all this art with ink, and eventually transitioned to tattoos, and it's been very busy with tattoos the past 10 years mainly.
How was the transition from, I wanted to get into tattooing when I was younger, like 18, 19, and it just never came to fruition. But I always wanted to know like what it was like to, like, be using this machine that's vibrating and, tattooing on skin. Like what was your learning curve with that? Like, did you pick up on it right away, or?
No, it's awful. That's what, anytime like someone's like, I want to apprentice, I'm like, why? It fucking sucks. Like, it really does suck. It takes forever. It's never what you think it is. Like, it really doesn't turn into drawing until 2 to 5 years in. That depends on what you can pick up and learn. And,
okay.
But yeah, it was a large chunk of time that I was like, well, shit, I'm in this. This does suck. I suck at this. I just got to stick it out because I think this is what I'm supposed to do, or something. I don't know. That's something, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a hard road.
Yeah, I was in my hometown. I originally wanted to get into tattooing because it's like, you set your own schedule. You're responsible for, your cash flow. And granted, you're going to have to do a Tasmanian devil tattoo here and there or whatever it might be. But you kind of have to, like, it seems like, you kind of just have to like eat shit for a while, but you're getting practice, like.
Man, It depends on what artist you want to be too. You know, like gonna do custom stuff all day, and you can do well. Where I live in the Midwest, you know, in Chicago anymore. Tell comes from my and walk-ins, stuff like that. Uh, create a career out of, excuse me, custom art and being like, hey, check out this art I drew. That's different than the million other people that do art as well, and a million other people that do tattoos. So I think it comes down to really applying your personality to your own art to create something unique that people don't have, so that you can survive.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I feel you.
I know a lot of tattoo artists that have other jobs, you know, and I understand that because it's a really tough career. So
yeah, and you just got back into doing it again since the more places are reopening, right?
yeah, we were closed for 2 months. They shut us down at the end of March there, like just like everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they kicked us back in about 2 weeks ago, and you know, there was just some stipulations to it. Not a whole lot for tattoo shops, weirdly. Just like, oh, well, it was Iowa too, and obviously Iowa is always just kind of like, well, wear a mask, or you know.
Iowa's good Iowa, you know.
Yeah. So we got these like really ambiguous emails from the health department too, or like, keep up what you're doing because you're a tattoo shop, but maybe use more hand sanitizer and a mask. Like that was literally the emails. And I'm like, oh, okay.
I guess so, because I mean, like, it's the business of tattooing in general, the environment is got to be sterile. You know, everything has to be sterilized or covered or wiped down to begin with.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
you're covered there. It's just, I guess it's just the droplets thing, you know, like with the so
yeah, and you're so close to people, but I just tell, I mean, all the quarantine stuff aside, I just tell all my guys, you know, like, treat everyone like they have AIDS, you know, even if they don't, it don't matter. If you treat everyone like they have AIDS, it's the same thing you do every time, and it's just, you know, you're just going through the motions of keeping everything sanitary. So
sure. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like when the whole mask thing was controversial for some folks in the general public, you know. I was just like, you know, I don't like wearing this either, but you know, if I'm inside and it's just kind of like a peace of mind type of thing for you, you know, that like if I was sick, you know, this isn't any different than how it is in like, you know, a lot of cultures and, you know, in other countries. It's just like if they're sick, they just wear a mask, you know. For us, it was so new and so different to put one on that it just felt like this big restriction, you know, for a lot of individuals. But yeah, I just the way I explained it for people to like, you know, those things are going to protect you. It's like, well, I know that it's more for you. And on top of that, it's kind of this thing where I'm treating it as if everybody has it. Like, you know, like
the same thing. Yeah. Same thing. Like I said about the shop, if you just treat everyone like they have it, you're probably better off.
Exactly. But I guess also to tell the general public, Jorge and I had, God, I know we've had to have at least met once. This would have been back in like probably 2000. We had a lot of mutual friends, and an old band of mine played in the area where he lived at as well. So
I think I met you in the 90s, bro. I don't think it was 2000. It was the first carnation of Song of Zarathustra.
Oh shit!
It was at the Kanga Gallery in Iowa. I don't know if you recall this one. Really janky upstairs place. Mickey Nolan booked it.
Oh wait, this sounds familiar. What
city? You guys did have a drummer at the time. This was the first time I saw you.
Dave Seaman. He was in Orlock and he did some stuff with Hose Got Cable for a while.
Yeah, that shit. Yeah, and you know what's funny, because we were talking about packaging, but I would say the Song of Zarathustra stuff, packaging for your debut 7-inch. That was like when we all got that after we saw you guys play. we were all kind of like, what the fuck, you know, because I was a little kid then. I was maybe 15, 16. And then you guys played and red lights on, everyone was uniform. And I remember, like, seriously, the second note, you like face planted in between me and a couple other people's legs and just kept singing. And I was like, whoa, shit, this dude is just fucking going oh man, it was so good. It was so good. And then afterwards, you guys had a bin of recycled shirts.
Yep.
They all had the logo on it, but it was just like Goodwill shit. And we were like, you can do this. We can do this. Like, but you guys were so uniform and good about it, you know, that was really, but yeah, that was in the 90s, late 90s.
Okay. Yeah. So that would have been 98, 97 for sure.
Oh, that sounds right. Yeah.
There was that Quad Cities Fest was what brought us to a lot of people in the Quad Cities and Des Moines and Iowa City.
And I wasn't here at that time, actually. I had left home and moved to Milwaukee. My parents had kicked me out, and I hit the streets. I went
led you to Milwaukee.
Yeah, I was living in this like squat house, and all these punk bands were playing there, and I thought I was king shit of cool zines at the time. So, you know, like the Aaron Comet Bus or something. I thought I was in my own head.
Oh man,
that was not true though.
That's what's wild, because I was, you know, like, again, with bringing up the chat with Sonny was, I mean, I guess that, you know, that's just kind of like how like art and punk and so many things work, is that you someone's inspiring you, you take that, you explain it in your own way, you know, you regurgitate it in your own fashion, and then it's influencing somebody else. And like exactly what you said with the idea of like, you know, I can do this, you know, with the t-shirt bins, you know, like we got that idea from Angel Hair, you know, like just the t-shirt bins. And Sonny's like, I don't even know where we came up with that. It was probably from the Gravity 7-inch, the idea of just like, let's just screen a bunch of shit over one another. And that, I don't know, it was cool and so unique. And then I think that kind of planted a seed in a lot of our brains, where it was like, you're making something unique all the time. And like with the Mohinder 7-inch on Gravity, all the covers were different. Just another printing of just Mohinder and the information on the front. Like, that was cool. Like, I think that's kind of at least what drew me and a lot of us to these types of labels, you know, or in bands.
And that is too with me, where I was just like, whoa, it doesn't have to be the same every time. There's 50 of these, and they don't all have to be the same, and that's okay. And I'm a kid. I don't have money to pay for this shit. So let's do it like this.
Yeah, where it allows for like the little characters, you know, like there might be a thumbprint on there, but you're like, that's cool. You know, like this little thumbprint on the Guns N' Roses record I bought 10 years ago.
No, all that mass production stuff. And the same attitude. I mean, this is what led to us kind of rekindling. You know, how Blackthorn and Damien and Jems hooked back up. You know, trying to find that same feeling.
Totally. Yeah. And that was like the also, again, to the public here, when Damien started off as just basically like a thing to just release stuff for Blackthorn, because, you know, no one was going to put anything out for us, because we just didn't play as much, or didn't tour as much. So we just did it on ourselves. So when we released our first full-length cassette, first person to contact us was Jorge. And so we rekindled from there. And that's how the vinyl came about, and the friendship and the work that's come from that. Like, we seriously talk to each other nearly every day. For, you know,
for almost 2 years now, I think it's been.
It's so been crazy. A while. But what's cool, what I really liked about it is that we both were, you know, in our own right, we're like, you know, we're supporting friends groups, people that we're just meeting online that we really get behind, and like just exchanging ideas and information, like as if we were when we were young. And I really like that, you know, it's like that camaraderie, and like you feel proud supporting them and talking about them, you know, it's badass. So, I mean, I have to really thank you for reaching out. Like it really helped us out. And like, you know, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing except for just taking cues from previous friends' labels that helped us out in the past. So,
Well, I mean, yeah, thank you. Goals, you know, like you influenced me, and here we are paying it for. I
yeah.
don't know, but yeah, it was just a matter. Because I was like this art, and I played Blackthorn tape, and I was like, this is definitely singer song as Zarathustra. And that's when I reached out to you, and you're like, hey, this is Travis. You know, I just kind of went from there, and we've just so many projects since then. Like before even the Blackthorn 12-inch came out, we had already spiraled into a lot of projects.
Oh, big time. I mean, like, I didn't have an operating computer for the longest time, and all I had was just like the work computer and my cell phone, which is shit. And it was just like, could you please lay out some buttons for
The
me on this template? I'll pay you. And you're like, dude, I can just shit this out in a second. Just give me a minute, and I'll shoot you a file. So it just became this thing where it's like, you know, like I'll bug Jorge. Hey, no rush. Could I get some buttons?
But that's why I was just like, hey, dude, you should just fucking let me work for Damien, because I really enjoy like everything you've been doing, you know. So it's like this keeps me in shape, it keeps me in shape mentally in a lot of ways, and
Sure.
the computer and stuff. But I like it. A little bit burp then. But yeah, but because of that, I've been able to work with amazing people, you know, and meet people, and I think that's the main thing behind this. I socially, I'm not so hot, you know. I don't I don't do so good in the public, and so working with like other musicians and artists that can mentally do what I'm doing and visualize mentally, it seems we work together better, and I feel more comfortable, and
Yeah.
it makes it fun. Makes it a job, not so much a job, you know. And
Sure. It just seemed like what you were doing, and like, you know, the kind of art you've done and continue to do. It was just like this. I don't have to explain anything to you. You know what I mean? Like, I have to just bring up an example. Like, you know, that release, the layout for the text is killer. Like,
and a lot of that times, anytime you say that, and I'd be like, oh, I already know exactly what
I own that record. I'm just gonna go pull it out for my
Yeah, I mean, there's been a few times where you're like, oh, go to Discogs, and I'm like, well, I could just grab it out of my collection, you know.
Totally.
I'll do that, you know. So I think that's awesome. I think that's where the spark came from, you know. That I don't know, that really crazy weird 90s era of hardcore and punk.
Yeah.
Going into what I don't like to necessarily call screamo.
Yeah.
That rough word.
The revisionist territory of terminology. Yeah.
I was watching
seemed like a lot
Salad
of that came
Days.
about with Orchid, like, not to place blame on Orchid. Sorry, Jay. But when they were like, they had a huge following, you know, and it was just growing, especially in the East Coast and everything. Like,
Remember.
I seem to hear that terminology more because there were so many bands mimicking Orchid, you know, like so many bands. You're like, that sounds like Will on guitar. It sounds like Jay on vocals. And that's when I just kept hearing the word screamo. And at the time I was just like, it reminded me of some that stuff that reminded me of closer to like Mohinder or like Honeywell, you know, bands like that hyper screamy, fast, and it doesn't matter. Yeah, nothing's like on time just because you're super fucking spastic and like got a ton of energy for being a fucking 16-year-old or 17-year-old kid, you know.
I remember someone was like, they call it emo for emotion, but I like to call it emotive. And I was like, well, you know, call it what you want, but you're coming out the same thing as everyone else. But you know, it was that was the time. But and the things that they call screamo now are nothing relevant to that era, you know. There's just like a whole slew of these screamo bands that are not relevant to any of that stuff. That I honestly don't even know about a lot. But there's like a few years ago when I was working at this tattoo shop before I opened up my one in Davenport, this guy was like, "Oh, I'm super into screamo," and I was like, you know, what? I'm 30 years old. I know all about old screamo. And he played me all this music, and I was like, whoa, I'm not sure what this is. If this is what you call screamo, I'm super happy for you, but I don't know what this is. You know, things change. Things
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
So, but I was never a screamo advocate. So
Yeah. Yeah. Same here.
I don't know. Yeah, it was always just punk and hardcore, and then noise.
Yeah.
You know, when did you get into noise? Like,
it was around like it spiraled from like all right, I'll go back. My friend, I brought him up before in a previous interview, actually, was my buddy Jason Jensen that I've known when I was in high school. So like my junior year, roughly.
okay, but what year is this? Junior year?
94.
Okay.
94. Yeah. So he was the one who played me like Throbbing Gristle, White House.
Yeah,
like
that Throbbing Gristle was, yeah.
You know, and so like it was one of those things where it's like on the weekends we would bounce around from friends' houses to drink beer and smoke weed, and then we'd go get Taco Bell at some point, sit in the parking lot, and then he would put a tape on, and it was always something like Throbbing Gristle or White House, or like down the road like Mersbow, something with someone, you know. But it was through Throbbing Gristle and specifically White House that I got into or found out about noise. And then it just because I loved it because it was just so ridiculous, you know what I mean? Like I felt like sometimes with some of these things, like there'd be, once online came about and they're explaining all these different noise cassettes and releases, like there's so much description and information and explanation about it, and then you're like, what am I about to hear? And then you put it in, and you're like clearly it's about Tenement Square. You know, like, but yeah. I love that. I you know, like I love that absurdity. It's in different ways, and it's in a lot of the stuff we like the tongue-in-cheek aspects of like Nation of Ulysses. Like, to somebody that was noise back then, you know, just because it just this, you know, this didn't sound like the punk when I was a kid, you know, type of shit. But yeah, it was just that search of finding more obscure stuff, and like, and I went through a phase where it's like, you know, what's the most, I don't want to say the most offensive, but what's gonna piss people off because you're a teen. Like, I didn't get into like any like sketchy shit, but once you started to see in certain scenes and multiple micro genres of like, it's teetering in weird territory, whatever, I wasn't gonna buy it. But I was like, I know it's there, I know it exists. So.
Yeah, no, that weirdly kind of very similar to me. I grew up playing the piano and the drums. That was I started playing piano in kindergarten, so I had all these keyboards and shit my parents would buy me, and I was obsessed with cassette decks, and I just naturally started creating what was noise, anything and everything, you know, layering tapes with microphones and shit like that. And then I got into punk rock, and then Nine Inch Nails and Pigface and stuff like that. And I'm like, whoa, I've been kind of doing stuff like this.
Yeah.
Like, then that just led down really weird roads. And, you know, in the 90s then, for that stuff, I kind of just found these weird little niches of tape traders that were doing noise then. A lot of really weird, it was more off of like hardcore and punk and grind, like kind of just those people doing that stuff.
The more extreme shit for sure, like grind and stuff. Like, there was definitely like some uniform with, you know, like camaraderie with some noise people, it seemed like.
Yeah, and then the gore grind stuff kind of went into this weird noise thing, you know, and like, so that's where it would kind of get touchy for me, where I'm like,
yeah,
I don't know, some of this is a little sketch, and
yeah.
I don't know. So
earliest black metal, like when out in the 90s, a friend of mine was asking, it was like, are you familiar with any of these bands from Norway? It was like when, like, all of the region scene when it started to make a splash on like Rolling Stone and Spin and stuff.
Right.
Scene, and they're all like these Nordic teenagers, and they set fires to churches, and like some of them even murdered band members. I was like, whoa. Like people are like, so it was intriguing. And then when I first heard like, you know, at first like Dark Throne record, I was just like, God, it sounds like a blizzard, you know, like it sounds like and cold. And I could see how even in like with those scenes, like how it would, there was that appreciation for like noise, because it's a similar thing where it's like, it's the low quality of the recording is what's bringing a lot of the atmosphere to what you're
Absolutely.
hearing,
Absolutely. That tape hiss that's in there, you know, all those things, the aspects.
So cool. Yeah.
So
it's like,
important.
it's like a soft spot for people who were doing it out of necessity. Like they've had 4 tracks of just layers and layers, and it's just that tape hiss and hearing everything blown out.
Crank up your fucking stereo, and it's just so atmospheric and gross and wonderful. Man, I love that shit. Lords of Chaos book, I got that in, you know, late 90s, early 2000. And that's basically what everyone was like, dude, fucking dudes killing themselves or killing each other, burning churches. And so I got this book, and I just devoured this book and listened to music, and I was like, well, this music's cool, but this book's better, you know. And it didn't quite resonate like Tim, you know, Tim, He, you know, he was like, check out this band, Emperor, and all these things. I'm like, whoa, this shit is pretty fucking cool, but I don't think I fully grasped it at the time. And I had a bunch of CDs and stuff, but it took a long time for me to fully understand the music. I wanted to apply my own thought process to it. You know, I wanted to apply what I was into at the time to that music, and that's not what it was. So, it took me a long time to like really realize what it was, the hiss of this, you know, the tape, and how it was recorded gross on purpose and things like that. And I'm like, you don't hear the bass, like you don't hear shit on these albums, like I don't get this. And then later it was like, oh, I get this very much so. Very much so understand this. And then then the later I didn't get into the later black metal shit until just a few years ago, you know, like Carb Cross and all these weird bands. But it took a minute for me to understand that, you know, what it was. So
I was never into the whole like stuff like Cradle of Filth and everything, and like I was at the time, like I was already kind of like, you know, I already knew about black metal and appreciated it, and then it just kind of like blurred in with some of the spastic hardcore that we all liked, you know, just because
that's where it sat with me a lot of times.
Yeah, like Union of Uranus and stuff like that, where you're just like, it's so fuzzed out and like bad recording, and it's super fast, and it's high pitched scream vocals that isn't on top of the mix like a lot of metal records. And that's why I really liked it, because it resembled something that more in like hardcore that we liked. And there was a lot of kids, you know that for sure, there's a lot of kids in the hardcore scene in the 90s that loved black metal because it had the energy of like hardcore, but it was just
that's to me, that's when I first heard that stuff. I was like, well, this is like, you know, oh God, I feel bad saying it like this, but I was like, oh, this is like a weird version of Jerome's Dream or something, you know, like, this screamo at the time. Again, I was like, this is like this weird metal screamo, and I don't call it that. That's what I thought at the time in the 2000s or late 90s, you know, trying to wrap my head around it. So it took me a while to really appreciate its value, I think. But no, I love it. But that's where when we got back into, like, when Jems and Damien got together and that time, because when I was doing Nail in the Coffin, and before Nail in the Coffin, I did this label. Well, you remember Only 10 Between Us, the band I was in with Mickey Nolan and Matt Davis?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so at that point in time, it was a big thing to be Christian and hardcore, which we were not.
Especially in the Midwest.
Yes, and I'm sure you remember those days being from Iowa. those were weird times. There was actually like scene segregation because Christians didn't want to go to the normal people shows and things like that. So I started this label called Demonic Youth Crew.
Nice.
and that's what my very first tape label was, Demonic Youth Crew, and I did that forever. And I did all these punk and hardcore and screamy bands and noise and metal, black metal, anything, like, you know. And that transitioned into Nail in the Coffin Records, which, you know, 10 Grand, the Vita Blue, that was the debut 7-inch I released on that label. And then I did Growing's debut 7-inch, and then I worked with like Shoo Shoo, Clip Beaks, and you know, and that grew to, I ended up releasing over 200 albums on there. And that's where I was just like, man, I'm so tired of releasing all this like punk and metal and weird shit. Like, I want to do different stuff. I want to do hip hop. I want to do fucking, you know, Latin music. My band was doing a lot of weird psychedelic Latin music at the time. And I switched gears, like hardcore, you know, like kind of, it was like my teen years rebelling against my own punkness, I guess, you know, like growing up as a punk rocker, I hit the time where I was just like, I'm fucking bored with punk. I'm bored with hardcore. I'm bored with metal. I'm bored with all of this.
I hear you.
Yeah. So I took a lot of time off from that. And then Closet Witch came out around here locally, I think in 2017. And that's why I was like, ooh, hey, they kind of got a little flame going inside of me. Like, I'm feeling this hardcore stuff, you know, I'm feeling all this grind stuff again and metal. And then Blackthorn popped up, and I was like, hey, you know, I'm feeling like a kid again. I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying the music. I'm enjoying the art again. Like, everything's coinciding. And yeah, and here we are a couple years after that, and both of us have our own thing going pretty heavily. And
big time. Yeah, it was similar to you. I needed a break from a lot of things. I got kind of jaded with the hardcore scene because much like a lot of micro genres prior, be it like, even if back into like speed or thrash metal, you know, there was eventually there's got to be too many bands. Extreme metal just got to be too many of the same bands sounding like Carcass or something. Same that came with hardcore with a lot of the bands we liked. It just got to be where there was just so many fucking bands, and it'd be a 8-band bill, and pretty much all of them sound exactly the same, like everything. Right. And it was just hard to get excited about that because it, you know, not to discredit them, that could have been like their first or second band or whatever, but it just wasn't doing anything to me. It wasn't exciting me. So I like you, like I was like, I wanted to dive into other territories, and that's what I got enough, I guess, courage to start doing a lot of like improvisation with synthesizers and stuff, and getting in projects that didn't have live drums and guitars and such. And then I just had the spark from a handful of bands that I was like, holy shit, like they're my age, and this kind of has the same feel and energy as like how it was when I got on the shit in the 90s. And then slowly you're seeing people like, again, Jay from Orchid, you know, like he had a newer band. What was it called again? Something bullshit.
I was thinking Bucket Full of Teeth, but I'm not sure
No, that's Will's. That was Will's 2-piece band. But
that band was tight.
Absolute Bullshit or Absolute something.
I think I remember Absolute Bullshit, but I can't.
Yeah, but it was like, you know, it's just like hardcore band, you know, and then like Retox came out, and I was like,
yeah,
like this was that was like at the time, like my, you know, I was like, I liked this band a lot, like to as much as I would have liked Swing Kids back in the day, you know. I was like, it's just,
no, I loved Retox, man. When that stuff came out, that was just 5 years ago, something like that, right?
Retox? Oh yeah. Man, the Retox came out around 2010.
Was that long ago?
I was just moving to Canada in Toronto. I moved to Toronto in 2011, and yeah, that first like EP came out, and I was like, fuck yeah, Justin. Like, this is good, you know. Dude from Festival of Dead Deer's in it as well. Like, this is badass. Like, this is cool. And like, it just, kind of reignited this flame. I'm like, I'm going to revisit some old records. And then I just got it super inspired. Then when I moved back to Minneapolis, Steve, who's in Blackthorn now, who was in a prior band called Jabalo, I was doing a lot of stuff with Marijuana Death Squads and this project called Allens, which was my friend Tim Hawley, you know, and they're not guitar-oriented groups. And I was very anti-guitar for a while. I'm like, I just don't want to deal with it for right now. I don't want to deal with typical rock band setup. And Steve was just like, let's start a band together, you know? And I was like, okay, well, here's the rules, you know? Like, it's got to be short songs. Can't overthink it. Let's fucking just get to the next. Let's just write 10 songs and just move on, you know? And he's like, deal. And then we just started Blackthorn, and it was fun. And then we enlisted my buddy Matt from Iowa, and we wrote our first song in like maybe a half an hour, and he's like, that's it? Like, that's it. Let's move on.
That's what we need to do. All right. Now I think we have to do another intermission. I apologize.
I'll take one too. Welcome to the first Damien Conversations with Breaks. We'll be right back. With
breaks.
With breaks that you won't witness. And we're back. Station break. So I'm going to do a little rewind here and get back to how you started White Batzzz. So was White Batzzz like kind of like we were talking about how like, you know, we were tired of hardcore and metal and just a lot of like our surroundings of like what influenced us and a lot of the shows we were going to and everything. Is White Batzzz kind of was that kind of like your answer to like trying out something different that wasn't a hardcore band or a punk band, or did it just come into fruition on its own?
Well, I spent years doing a lot of electronic music, and even when I got into music before punk, before I really got into punk rock, it was industrial music. Like, you know, that kind of, you know, I think when Nine Inch Nails came out and stuff like that, it entered into a little gap in my head mentally, and so when White Batzzz started, it was just me and a buddy, and he was doing more stuff like Tame Impala. I just wanted to recreate. I just wanted to start something. I wasn't doing any music, and so we spent like a year. We put out like a 7-inch, and then he was like, I don't really want to do this. I don't want to play live, like. And I was like, oh. So I hit up my buddy, and that's the guy now, and we just he was just on a much heavier, deeper, like 90s feeling vibe, and we're more in the same age category. So it just kind of naturally happened. But where we've taken it, it's not contrived by any means. It's just definitely like a flow of like, well, I like Ministry. I like Thrill Kill Cult a lot, you know, and I also like fucking Prince, and I don't want to box myself, you know, like I just like want to create. And so we just did it, and we just see what it turned into, and it's turned into some weird shit, and we like it, and we're gonna keep going with it. And a technical like official first release would be that Damien compilation, you know.
With the new guy, or not the new guy, but you're the guy currently.
Yeah. We did that track, and we did a video, and that was like when we did that song for the compilation, it was just like a whole new plateau where we could like, hey, we're gonna work with Damien on this. Let's give him something fucking crazy, and then that just set us off in a whole new direction for everything in every aspect. So
what's cool because it definitely fit in perfectly without sounding like anything else on the comp, you know.
Well, thank you. But I mean, everything on that comp was different, so that was the beauty of the compilation, is it all had, I guess, almost the same vibration, but everything was so different, and the flow of the compilation is great, and Will's mastering of it adds that, I don't know, the perfect element. He's so good at what he does, so when something's mastered by him, you get this really awesome.
He dials it in well with whatever you're doing. I mean, like, he definitely leans towards certain types of recordings best, but like, it's even within that, it's vast, you know. Like, there's a lot of shit that he does that he has his touch on that feels great, you know. So, like, I guess what's in store for White Batzzz now? I mean, I know you've been busy with the label because you put out a lot of stuff. So,
Yeah, I do release last stuff. White Bats, okay, so we have that 7-inch that's supposed to come out on Damien. We've been graciously waiting for Neil Burke's art for a little bit of time.
Neil Burke, everybody.
Neil Burke. Check him out. If you don't know, you need to know.
Sure.
But yeah, so once that's available, that will be out immediately. We're finishing up this 12-inch, and we're planning to do a split with this dude, Anonymous Hands. He also does the Project Vide and some Dead Bodies, and they all do stuff on Jems. It's a really eclectic guy. So yeah, that's the plans right now. We've been working heavily on it the past year more, and live shows. Fuck. Like eventually live shows again. I know everyone keeps saying how they want to do live shows, but I mean, I really want to do live shows.
Yeah. It's weird taking this long of a break, you know, like I take breaks from playing live to begin with, but taking this long of a break is like, shit, like, am I going to like start like booking a ton, like once everything is kind of like settled, you know, like, am I going to be one of those people who books like 4 or 5 shows in a month just because I just need to get it out of me?
Yeah. And well, I can't, I'm really curious on when shows do kick back in, like, what is it going to be like? Is there going to be just such a, you know, like what do they call it? A bottleneck of like bands trying to like do something, and everyone's kind of getting stuck, you know, like, well, we're booked up for the next 3 months immediately, you know, like
because the capacity is going to be super low because of like the distancing.
Well, that too,
you know? Yeah.
Luckily, I don't think that will be a factor in my shows, but
and like no one's coming to my shows, we're fine.
Yeah. It's like, have you seen that meme where it was like, man, I can't wait to play shows again, literally in my last show, and it's like a basement, you know?
That basement meme thing is amazing. I love how it applies so much to like so much harsh noise wall like stuff.
Well, literally the last Batzzz show that we played at the beginning of the year was that. Like, I literally thought it was the picture of the basement, and I had to look deeper. But
you're like, that chair was even involved. I know it was there.
Yeah, it was an interesting show.
Because the door guy went and took off.
There was no door guy at this show. There was there was a fire that started in the basement accidentally. Yeah, it was good.
Time.
It was good. Can't wait for more.
Well, cool. So do you have any goals with like Jems now? I know that you've got things that spiral off from one another. Like you said, like Vide keeps you busy because he's got so many projects and puts out enough on his own, and clearly there's people who you go back to release stuff for, but it's like growing. So are you kind of going by the seat of your pants, so to say, like just seeing where it takes you, or do you have like
there's definitely no agenda to it, and I mean, I just started releasing stuff that I liked, and there's no strings attached to it. Just like, oh, Vide, I like your music. You seem like a cool fucking dude. Let's do this, you know. Or Witchbone's another guy from Portland who I work with a lot, and
those two seem like they stay busy. You know,
they do. They're very prolific, and they're not watered down with what they do. Everything they do has quite potent to it, and yeah, I like the guys a lot. But yeah, there's a lot of bands that have a lot of projects like that I work with. But I'm always with Jems, I really love to bring to light bands that no one will fucking hear, no one will ever seek out, and that's what I like to do, is seek out weird shit that 4 people have heard. And at the same time, I'm lucky to have a platform where I've worked with bands like Holder or, you know, Commodus and things that like people just buy their merchandise immediately.
Yeah, and then you've got that built-in fan base that are like, I'll just buy whatever you're going to be putting out next, you know?
Yeah, so then that gives light to smaller bands that no one will ever pay attention to, and I like that. Like there's no ego behind it. Like, oh, I'm too good for your little band. Like, no, I like your little band, and I want to put it right next to the big band that is in decibel right now, you know? So
Yeah, totally.
So I think that's the punk ethos still in me, still coming to fruition of like, I don't know. I just don't want that feeling of like, oh, everything I'm doing right now is selling out immediately, and that makes me really fucking cool. Like, I don't care about that shit. It's just like, I like bands, I like music, I like art. Let's put music out, and if it sells, cool. If not, then I guess I got a box of shit in my closet. Whatever. I'm still stoked on it.
You understand the end game of like what it's like to operate a label or be in a band that's had a label put out stuff for you. Like you get it, you know.
Yes. Yes.
So it's not.
I mean, we've been
It's
in
not
the
like you're
game
gonna be
for-
bummed after each release if something didn't happen. Like, well, that's it. Time to pack it up.
Right, yeah, and I emotionally detach from things like that anyway. So I'm like, oh, well, this record still has X amount of copies. That sucks, but whatever. I still love that guy. I still love the music, and you know what? I'm gonna work with the next album too. And if that doesn't sell, then cool. We got 2 albums sitting here that don't sell. You know, I don't care.
Yeah.
It's definitely not about making money, and it's yeah, I think it's just more about projecting outwardly any form of music like this that I enjoy, which we seem to enjoy dark, evil, weird, fucked up music, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's interesting because my girlfriend is literally the complete opposite of me in every aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And in the best way ever, you know? So when she's like, ooh, Blackthorn, or, you know, like, oh, what's going on with Closet Witch, you know? And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, and she's asked me to explain it. And as of recent, it's been more like, well, this stuff sounds really bad. Why does it sound so bad? You know, and I'm like, okay, so this is the thought process behind it. This is why they record music so lo-fi, you know, and this is why things look so gross, you know, and I try to explain my thought process behind it.
Yeah.
That's been interesting looking inward to tell someone or teach someone something that is just ingrained in me, you know, and you as well. So
I guess I lean towards music and art that feels or sounds, looks cathartic, you know, like I'm not going to go out, I would hope, in public and just start fucking losing my mind on somebody, you know, screaming or like, as you said, like just plow myself into an audience at crotch level. Like, I mean, like, there's an outlet for that. And that's how, you know, I don't need to explain it to anybody, but that's how anyone gets into whatever that they got into that was different from what pop culture or whatever their bubble was growing up in life. Like, you know, there's a reason why you gravitate when we're younger towards punk or certain types of metal, you know, like not Queensryche, Slayer, you know, things like that. So and whenever I remember like if I've ever been on like a date and one of the worst questions is, you know, like, oh, so you play music. So what kind of music? You're like, you know, here it comes. Everything's white on black and like,
yeah,
you know, etc. But I was like, you just got to view this as like, it's very cathartic for me and for everybody involved. Like it feels good to write music that is insanely, you know, it's dark, it's loud, it's aggressive. Clearly there's something behind it. And it's that, you know, that doesn't represent us as a person 100%. This is just something that is like, you're exercising it, you know, like you need to get this out of you. Otherwise you are going to be that horrible person in public that their life's so bad, they need to drag you into misery as well. Like this makes me happy after we get done with practice, or, you know, like whenever you get copies of whatever it is that you're releasing or receiving for your own band, like as soon as you get it, you're fucking excited and you're happy. Like,
yeah,
you know, like
absolutely. Yeah. It's almost like a drug or something in its own right. I don't know. Yeah, it's that, especially at this day and age, my happiness comes in pieces. So when it is something like that, it's like, yes, this is what I needed. This is exactly what I wanted in life. And yeah, you finish practice, for, you know, I feel like I just did yoga or something, you know, like it works for me. That's what works for me. And Yeah, I think that's what keeps us going. It's not because I'm making so much money. And I don't think you're making a ton of money doing this. It's
No,
just what you love. It's what you love and what you've always loved, and what feels right to you, feels comfortable. I think we've just both been doing this for so long. We're lifers, you know. I was talking with a buddy of mine, and he's just like, yeah, you know, we've known each other for 20 years, and this guy, he's been in so many bands, and he's been able to constantly reinvent himself, you know, and something. And I think that says something about a person when it's like, oh, I know Joe Schmo, like he worked at Walmart, now he works at Target, and now he works at Best Buy. Like that's just being a person and not reinventing yourself. But someone who can reinvent themselves through music or an art, you
mm-hmm.
know, that really takes your essence as a person, as a human, as a being, you know. Like you have to put it all on the line and put it out there. And it's interesting to see people our age who have done that many times over and
Sure.
are still respectable, you know what I'm saying? Like not like
Yeah.
like anybody we know turned into Britney Spears or something like that, and you're like, well, they really they really
Wait, you
did
don't know
something
Brittany?
weird.
You don't know Brittany?
My girlfriend might, but no, I don't know her.
Uh,
So yeah, no, that's why I think just being the age that we are, I think it's important, you know, that we do continue to create the things that we're creating. And well, again, when we did the Blackthorn album, it was so like, man, we did so many phone conversations where we broke down every aspect, every layer of that album, every insert, the Obi strip, man, the fuck, like everything, you
yeah.
know, and it
What
was
stock
so
is it
important.
on? You know, like
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You know, like how does that feel? What's that paper feel like? You know, like, ooh, maybe we should not do glossy. Let's not do, like
yeah,
it's all important. And I think if you that's applied, it just can simply you just have good product and something that is affirming the people involved love what they do and not the
yeah,
money that comes from it. Um, yeah, so I think that kind of summarizes everything that I do and probably a lot of what you do. You know, it's just what we are. It's just what we do. We can't do anything more.
yeah.
I could do more, but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
In this aspect,
Mhm.
you know, I try to use. Um, I think everything in myself. You know, every artistic aspect, every like what if we made pin packs, you know? And then when we started working together, it started bringing up things like, whoa, shit, Travis is thinking of shit that I've never thought of, and I could totally do that. And then I'm bringing up stuff that you're like, whoa, well, I've never done that. And then you would do
Yeah.
it, you know? And
Totally.
we're doing the same thing, but in completely different lights, and they both come out great, you know? And that's what I really loved about that relationship that we started too, is it was just like a meeting of the minds, you know? Like, this is
Yeah.
what I got. What do you
Yeah.
got? Cool. All right. Well, I'm gonna go do my thing. You do your thing. We'll talk more later. You know. And
It's like when movies have two well-known directors or directors who have enough uh, under their belts of stuff they've done, and then now they're like working together because then it's like they've got this meeting of the minds, and we butt heads here because we don't quite understand that, but there's all this other shit that is completely like influencing one another,
oh yeah,
and in like
absolutely.
those good ways where it's like, as you said, like it's just where you're thinking of or what how you're viewing something is going to be completely different or a little bit different from the next person. So getting that little extra tidbits, just like being, you know, writing music, any kind of collaboration whatsoever, like it, there's reasons why you stick with certain individuals. And
Yeah,
like once you get that bond and that chemistry, like it's, you want to continue working with them in some way, you know?
I agree. I agree. Yeah, and it's hard to find people that do resonate on the same level. You know, like or think in the same weird light that we have thought of. You know, like find people who are like, oh yeah, I bought fucking 70 Goodwill T-shirts and just screen right over the top of them. Like, who in their fucking right mind is gonna be like, that is a great idea? Well, I thought that, and then I took that idea and I did the same thing with my band, you know, and here we are 20 years later. Um, so I think it's yeah, the minds that like to think in between the lines, you know, and things like that that are kind of moving forward this day. Like these days, the people that have worked and learned to create revenue in the gray areas, it seems like those are the people thriving right now, you know, just because of the quarantine stuff, the the classes are changing because people that had money
Oh,
and
yeah.
going to corn, you know, like things like that.
Absolutely.
And
Mhm.
and I'm a little artsy nerd, you know, and I didn't skip a beat throughout any of this. And monetarily, it actually just got better for me throughout this. And I'm still doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting how everything's changing. And
But still
start,
stay the same.
but yeah.
And
So
some
you're gonna
passion.
fucking kill me, but you got me drinking beers, and you know you're gonna have to pause it again. So.
Okay. Well, we'll do a pause and then we'll do a quick like wrap up and see where we'll settle things up with the rest of the conversation here. We'll be right
I think
back,
that sounds.
everybody. And we are back from our station break. Welcome back to the most chill Damien conversations, which of course is including Jorge. So we were just talking about basically what keeps us into what we're doing, what motivates us, relationships when it comes to like people we work with and continue to work with, whether it's through music, art, anything of this nature. So
Yeah.
moving forward, I know that you said you're just kind of keeping it in the air with Jems, just kind of just allowing it to be as is, or
Yeah, there's no real, I mean, like I said, yeah, we moved into a lot of black metal stuff the past 3 years, and it wasn't, I just listened to the music and I just was like, well, I'm going to put out this band and I'm going to put out this band, and then here we are, you know. But I mean, I still do like noise. I still have stuff coming out from like dark wave bands and like post-punk bands and, you know, some really cool bands. But yeah, basically anything dark, but there's no true agenda behind what we're doing aside of chaos, spreading chaos. Yeah, no, we have like really I have like 25 releases in the works, something like that, maybe a little bit more. And they're not like oh, I want to do this. They're like everything is literally in the works, in production in some form.
Yeah.
You know, it's just it's so ingrained into me doing this label that it's just it's a full-time job, and then tattooing is a full-time job. So so yeah, in between breaks at work, I'm doing label stuff. You know,
Yep.
yeah, it's just, and I love it. I love every aspect of it, and I wouldn't do it if I didn't. You know, so I'm really lucky to be one of the people that literally, you know, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. You know, but that sure is a lot of fucking work. But yeah, I do love it. I do love it, and it takes a lot out of me, and I do this over working at Walmart any day, you know. Or let's see, before I tattooed, the last job I had was I sold treadmills at Sears, treadmills and water heaters at Sears. So
Snaps.
that was
Those skills and ran with it.
yeah. Once I had an opportunity to do an apprenticeship, and I fucking blew it super hard. Like, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be this tattoo artist, and I got in there and I was like, whoa, this is real work, you know. Just drop the ball, let it go. And then about 8 months later, I was offered another apprenticeship, and I was like, I should probably do this if I want to do art for a living and not, you know, work at Sears or the Goodwill.
Yeah.
So that's what I've done, and I've been lucky to be able to do that, and for a chunk of time been able to you know, just fund the label by my own, and, you know, by art, tattoos, and then, but now the label just funds itself, or I can just put it right back into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't want to do anything else. I don't want to work another job. I don't want to work for other people, you know. That's the hardest thing, you know. Working for myself is like working for someone else. Like, I'm a slave to myself all the time. I give myself jobs and I force myself to work out and things, you know, like, hard enough on myself. I don't need someone else to be harder on me who doesn't give a fuck, you know.
Yeah. And then I think that even goes back to like when, you know, the forming relationships with people that kind of bounce back and forth some new insider ideas that you hadn't possibly seen. So I feel like any kind of like discipline or ideas or something that might trigger you to be like, maybe they're right, is going to be someone that's going to be close to you or someone that you're going to be working with. And it might rattle something in your brain in the tattoo world. Like I can apply that thought to this too. I just didn't think about it that way. You know?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I definitely I use my tattoo shop and the label to spin ideas off each other. Like the label started doing a bunch of shirts and white bat shirts, and then I was like, oh yeah, why don't I do this for my tattoo shop? And then we did all these shirts for my tattoo shop, and you have one of them. So, and they did great, you know. So things like that, and the pin packs that we've done for the label, we did an anniversary thing like a year ago, and I did pin packs with little gift certificates on the back of them.
That's cool.
And you did the fucking pins for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, you remember. So yeah, you know, so yeah, I use one hand to, I don't know, help the other all the time. And I think that's a good thing when you can do that, when you can acknowledge like, oh, I apply this to this part of my life, and I can apply it over here as well. Things aren't set in stone. You know, like you can apply shit everywhere.
It's almost like when you can speak, when you're in a band and you can speak to the drummer or speak drums or speak guitar.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
You know, it's like there's that different language, but it's all in one, you know, it's all a part of the same thing. You just like once you figure out how to translate it into whatever territory, it's the same thinking, it's the same mentality, you know.
I think that's just learning to learn, you know, like I learned how to learn. I learned how to let myself take in and pull from that, you know, and that's for me, that was a big ego thing. Like I had to set ego aside to be like, I don't know everything. I'm going to listen to this person tell me why my art doesn't look cool, why my lines aren't clean, you know, like if you can set that aside, then you can apply the, you know, that positive critiquing to other things. And I just chased my tail doing that, applying everything everywhere. So, but yeah, going back to like working with people that we've worked with forever, I think it's really cool. Yeah, like how we were able to bring Phil in from straight printing, and I've been working with Phil for like 20 years.
Yeah, he does some great printing. Like his shit is really fucking clean and nice.
Will Killingsworth, you know, like he's mastered how many projects that we've worked on together at this point in time, you know, like just all these people you've known that you know, and all the people that you know that have like, oh, they did this project, Earthquaker Devices, you know, what's his name? Jamie, is that his name?
Yep.
From Earth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jamie and Julie, it's those two, but yeah, Jamie's the one who he's the one who does all the pedal work, but it's both of their.
Who played the guitar in Party of Helicopters as a part
Jamie.
of that? Okay, yeah.
Dude's like Donut Friends. I don't know if you remember that label.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, dude. So that shit, like Party of Helicopters, oh my God, I've been just, and 20 years later.
Harriet the Spy, he was in that band. No, was it Harriet the Spy?
I remember that band, but I don't recall the people.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. Sorry to interrupt, but like,
actually, I think you're right because they did do stuff on Donut Friends.
He played drums in it, I think.
I'm not sure about that, but I know.
We'll have to ask. We'll have to go to Discogs for that one.
Yeah, there'll be the trivia. There'll be a trivia at the end of this.
Hey,
yeah.
Jamie, where you at?
I love that, dude. Oh my God, Discogs is so cool for the.
But yeah, you were saying, yeah, like with Earthquaker, like he
like
helped
20 years later. Who would have thought I would be
people too again? You know.
That was fucking awesome when you guys did that and went out to that. The whole shebang they did there. And
yeah, Earthquaker, I can't remember if it was the 4th or 5th. The thing was that and I was talking about this with Tony Joy. He was like, you know, like I knew of Earthquaker before I knew that Jamie Stillman was the one who was creating the devices. And,
yeah, I didn't know that it was him until you told me.
And I didn't know it was him until it was like, how the fuck did I find out? You know, I think I probably just read something online. I was like, no shit, Jamie? Like, we were label mates. And so I had to write him. And Julie, his wife, who's the other, you know, the other half of Earthquaker, like, booked Zarathustra, you know, in 2000 and 2001. Like,
were you guys on Trouble Man together or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. He was in, you know, that band, and then it was something called New Terror something. I
New
forget.
Terror Class.
New Terror Class. That was
Yeah, I played with them a few times back in the
Yeah.
day. My old band Organs. Actually that's we Organs played with like the last version of Song of Zarathustra, or a version of Song of Zarathustra. We played with a lot of those bands, Party of Helicopters, that cool era.
that era. Yeah.
That really interesting era.
Yeah. He I can't remember. Like, it had been something online, just like nerding out about something and doing some research, and then finding out it was Jamie and reaching out, and then they actually had a good relationship with Zvex Pedals, which is based out of Minneapolis here. And so they knew Zachary, and they knew Andy, who was basically like the second in command for Zvex at the time, and he played guitar in an old band of mine, Book of Dead Names, and he was he was in the Crush as well.
Yeah.
But
I love that band. I love
unfortunately,
drum stream that 5-inch.
We got back in touch under sad circumstances, because when Andy died, we had a benefit, and we were helping out his widow and our good friend Mo with just continuing with life. So like funds are going to be needed, like selling the house and just transitioning out. And since they knew Zachary and worked with and knew Zvex and had known Andy just from the NAM fest, fests that would music fest, or like instruments and whatever. They flew out and helped work at, we were at Zvex helping out with like just their workload for like the week, and they helped us set up the show like that Zarathustra reformed to play. And they did.
What year was this?
Jesus, 2013.
Oh, it was that long? Like, I mean, not that long, but it was that late in the 2000s. What? This was like a reunion, or?
Yeah, it was our second reunion. We did a reunion in 2010. Like, I had got back in touch.
Did TJ play this?
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't do it unless
the whole. Oh, okay.
We wouldn't do it unless it was like TJ, Jamie, and I, because that's who supports the band, like.
Well, that was those were the trifecta.
We got back in touch in 2010, and this was before I moved to Toronto, and we just kind of rekindled our friendship. And then he called the next day, and he's like, we should do a Zarathustra reunion. I'm like, what? Like never, like we broke up twice, but we got back in touch, and we've been staying in touch, like it might go like most of a year, like in most recent years, but like when we get back in touch, we talk,
yeah. It's one of those things where when you start talking to someone that you haven't talked to in a while, and it's like the conversation just picks back up. It feels like that a lot with you. We talk so much, so frequently. It's like it's just one long conversation all the time. It's a cool place to be with people.
But I mean, they came out to help out, and that's how we got back in touch. Was through Julie and Jamie, and then that's when we discovered that we all have the same birthday, March 1st.
That's interesting, dude. I know, man. So many people have March birthdays. That's wild. That's super. My birthday's next week, actually.
Oh shit! Happy pre-birthday.
This Friday, 6/12.
So this episode, this chill, laid back episode, is coming out on your birthday. So I think it's actually kind of nice that we've been having a beer. So cheers to you.
Yeah, cheers up the cooler.
I was looking for Minnesota Gold, but I had to deal with Budweiser, Cheers to you.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I'll be 38 years young. Yeah, that's an interesting age, and not any way at all. So,
so I guess before we wrap up, anything you want to engage in as far as like, is there territories with Jems that you're curious that you'd like to take it? Not necessarily through releases, or possibly like you're saying, like with some affiliations, like when we did the thing with like Earthquake or with that pedal and stuff. Like,
I don't know. I just want to keep growing the label. There's not like like I have to pay taxes for this label next year. So
Mm.
if I have to do that, that means that okay, well then fuck the ceiling and let's just go for broke and see what happens with it. I want to do big fest. I want to do, I want to be able to just find an anybody band and be able to pay for that. That I want to. Just someone that's, that's a place where it would be really good to like, oh, I like your music. You're from Ecuador. 4 people follow you. And now I'm putting out your 12-inch, with no worries about the monetary issues.
Mm.
That would be key. That's all I really care about is being able to, constantly recycle and put out shit, and maybe make things bigger for everyone involved. I just like to keep the fact that everyone involved is, should feel the fruition of this. Everyone involved should, in some form, be a part of the light that's shined on Jems right now. Like, I don't know. Like some labels are like, oh, I put out this person's band and whatever, I threw them aside. And now I'm focused on, like, I want everyone that I'm involved with to, at, all points in times, like, share the love.
No, I feel you. Like with my goal, like with Damien, like I was like, I want to do things for friends. That's always generally like the first thing. But it's also like you want to start new friendships that are going to grow,
Yes.
and that you're going to keep around and like that you want to have, and that it's showing that it is possible to still make, new valuable friendships at an older age. Because it is difficult for some people to just kind of open up after a certain point, like some people just kind of stop and then they have a bunch of acquaintances, that's about it. And then if you kind of drop out for a year, you no longer hear from them and then it's just gone. But
that might be a part of this for my psyche is the fact that it's enabling me to like actually talk to people. And because before I didn't care, but now, like, oh, I talk to you and we know about things and we can connect. Yeah. I don't do that with a lot of people. So I think it maybe has been a little bit of, the psyche part of it that enables me to reach out. So I think that's cool.
Big time.
So
cool.
Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of good stuff coming from both of us. I'm always, it's cool to have a friend like you that does a lot of stuff that still intrigues, when you become friends with someone and you lose the value of what they're doing, you're like, oh, that's my friend. He just does that. Like, I still appreciate what you do, and I value the releases that you do. When you say, hey, I put something in the mail for you, I get excited about that. That's a kudos to you, on many levels. Like, hey, we can maintain a friendship and I appreciate what you do and artistic value.
We should also let everybody know that Jorge is the only other person who has every single release by Damien, because we've based this friendship from the get-go when we were starting as a label, even though it'd been around for a couple years without us doing anything. But everything is just like Jorge gets a copy. Jorge gets a copy. Like if there's a pressing of something that's 30, it's 33. Because Jorge gets a copy, Bob gets a copy. I'm not joking. Like
I appreciate that.
The Road Conjurer stuff, the Road Conjurer late set, each one is 33 because each one of us gets a copy and then the band gets theirs. And
oh man, you're gonna make my head swell.
But also to make it swell more, I guess. I'm joking, but Jorge is going to be doing the layout for the next Damien compilation, which I'm starting to get some ideas on for like a theme, but yeah, there's a lot of exciting stuff on that, and I'm really happy to have him do this one for sure. We had Morgan did the last one, and this will definitely look
killer
like
stuff.
Yeah, we're stoked. We've got the rest of the year to work on it, so I'm pretty stoked on that.
Yeah, I know. I've even been bugged. Well, let me know when you're ready. I just, it's still a giddy kitty feeling when I'm excited about something. So that's an awesome place to be at almost 40. So
it's all good. Well, thanks a ton for doing this.
Thank you.
Yeah, we did. It was just a good chill hangout. We've never looked at one another and had a conversation before, like since we started chatting. We've only talked on the phone, so
no, not at all.
This is pretty cool. Well,
yeah, that's cool.
I want to say thanks for everybody for tuning in. In the description section below, I'll put any links to what Jorge allows me to put links to. So I imagine at least the Jems, making a mention of anything that's coming out at least by this Friday. And again, happy birthday.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. All right.